Hi, it's Ash Wednesday, the start of Lent, a season when we all think about giving things up. Well, this season I want to just do a series of these videos looking at some Christian myths, things that I think are myths at least, and I wondered whether you might like to join me in giving up some of those myths. Hi again. The second myth that I want us to have a little look at is that the sovereignty of God means that God is literally and completely and always in control. It's an easy myth to buy into because that's our experience of power. Somebody who has power, in our experience, generally exercises it, and often for their own benefit. And if they've got it, they use it. We see that through every dictator that's ever lived, don't we? But does God have to be like that? Surely if God is sovereign, if he's really sovereign, he gets to choose how he exercises that sovereignty. If he is all-powerful, omnipotent, then surely he gets to choose how he exercises that. It's not us who defines how he should do it, not in terms of our expectations, but in terms of how he chooses. And the Bible says that God is love, and that love does not insist on its own way. Bit of a theme here, eh? Well, if that's the case, then sovereignty can't possibly mean that he manipulates or controls. It must be that he exercises his power in ways that are relational and that allow us the dignity and, catastrophically sometimes, the right to choose. But of course that throws up all sorts of problems, doesn't it? How on earth, literally, does God get his will done unless he's pulling the strings? How can you get your will done when people are free to make their own crazy, ungodly choices? And that's why it's so easy to fall into this trap and this myth. But when we look at the world, it's clear that God isn't minutely controlling things, because if he is, then he is the one that is minutely controlling all of the evil in the world. And the Bible says God isn't evil. It says that evil doesn't even cross his mind, and that he fights against it. Indeed, the whole point of the cross was to defeat evil, not to use it, not to empower it. And his word says that it's actually not by might that he gets his will done. It's not by power, but it's by his Spirit. It's by who he is. The Spirit of God is a spirit of love and peace and patience and goodness and kindness and all of the other fruit. So how does this work? Well, David, when he was writing the Psalms, starts with one of them, Psalm 8, and says, when I look at the universe, when I look at your power, when I look at your majesty, you're extraordinary. We're nothing. You could just pull the strings. And then when he gets to Psalm 23, he says, you know, this powerful God, this is how he does it. He does it as a shepherd. He uses his omnipotence to protect the sheep. He uses his all-knowing wisdom to know what's best for the sheep and to guide them and to encourage them into the right ways. And his reach, to reach down into the deepest valley, to pull them out, to see them in the nook of the rock and to hoik them out with his stick. He uses all of his omnipotence, all of his wisdom, all of his reach to shepherd the sheep. He gets his will done, not because he pulls the strings and controls, but because he uses the freely made choices of humans and angelic beings and weaves them into a pattern that he knows will complete the work that he set out to do. So here's the myth, that everything that happens is the will of God. No, it isn't. That's a myth. The Bible says this. Jesus taught us how to pray. He says, pray that God's will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Well, there's no point in praying it if it already is. The reality is God's will is not being done all the time. Ultimately, God will have his way, but not because he's pulling the strings, but because he knows that sovereignly he can direct history through our freely made choices. Let's make good choices this Lent.